The judge was about to take my daughter away forever. And the worst part? He actually believed I was crazy. I'm Amanda, and 6 months ago, I had everything. A beautiful daughter named Mia, a home, a life that made sense. Then my husband Brad introduced me to Dr. Veronica Chen, a renowned psychologist, who was supposed to help me with my stress. What I didn't know was that every word I said in those sessions got twisted, documented, turned into evidence that I was dangerous and unfit. And now, sitting in that freezing courtroom, I was watching it all fall apart. The judge adjusted his glasses, based on the psychological evaluation submitted by Dr. Veronica Chen, which documents narcissistic personality disorder and emotional volatility. I hereby grant full custody to the father, Bradley Morrison, effective immediately. Brad and Veronica exchanged a look, almost like they were trying not to smile. My world was ending, and they were celebrating. Then the courtroom doors slammed open. Mia, my 8-year-old, came running down the aisle with her pink iPad clutched to her chest. "Stop! You have to stop!" Brad shot to his feet, face going white. "Mia, someone grab her!" But she was already at the front, looking up at the judge with terrified eyes. "Please, sir, you have to see this. They're lying. I recorded them." Before anyone could stop her, she connected her iPad to the courtroom display. The screen flickered on, showing Brad and Veronica on our couch with wine glasses, sitting way too close. Brad's voice came through the speakers. "That psych report is perfect. We commit Amanda, trigger the mental health clause in her mom's will, and that $3 million inheritance goes to me." Veronica laughed, running her fingers down his arm. "And nobody questions a licensed psychologist, especially when the judge is getting his cut." Brad clinked his glass against hers. 20,000 wired to his offshore account this morning. The courtroom exploded. The judge's face went from shock to pure rage. He grabbed the gavel, slamming it down so hard I thought it might crack. "Bailiff, lock every door. Nobody leaves this courtroom." Brad tried to move, but security was already blocking the exits. Veronica started talking fast, but the judge wasn't listening. He was staring at that screen, watching his name get dragged through mud he didn't even know existed. And I realized something that made my hands start shaking. The video was still playing. Whatever else Mia had recorded, we were about to see it. And judging by the look of absolute terror on Brad's face, it was going to be so much worse than what we'd already heard. Let me take you back to where this nightmare actually started. Because it didn't begin in that courtroom. It began 6 months earlier, on a Tuesday morning that seemed completely normal. I was making Mia's lunch, peanut butter and jelly, cut into triangles the way she liked, when Brad came into the kitchen with this concerned look on his face. "Hey babe, we need to talk." He sat down at the table, doing that thing where he rubbed his temples like he was carrying the weight of the world. "I'm worried about you. You've seemed, I don't know, stressed lately, overwhelmed." I remember laughing it off. Of course I was tired. I'd been a nurse for 10 years before Mia was born, and now I was a full-time mom, but Brad kept pushing. "I found someone who can help. Dr. Veronica Chen. She's a psychologist, top of her field. My company uses her for executive consultations." The way he said it made it sound like therapy was this prestigious thing, like I'd be lucky to get an appointment. And honestly, part of me thought maybe it would be good to talk to someone. I didn't realize I was walking straight into a trap. The first session with Veronica felt off. She had this office downtown, all white walls and minimalist furniture, the kind of place that's supposed to feel calming but just made me nervous. She asked normal questions at first. How was I sleeping? How was my relationship with Brad? Did I have support systems? But then she started twisting things. I told her I was tired because Mia had been sick, and I'd been up with her for 3 nights straight. She wrote something down and said, So you're experiencing chronic fatigue and finding childcare overwhelming." That's not what I said. When I tried to clarify, she just smiled this thin smile and nodded like she understood something I didn't. Every session was like that. If I mentioned that Brad had been working late a lot, she'd ask if I was experiencing paranoid thoughts about infidelity. If I said I missed working as a nurse, she'd write down feelings of inadequacy in domestic role. It was like talking to someone who was determined to misunderstand every single word that came out of my mouth. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Brad was paying her extra for those sessions. Not the normal rate. We're talking thousands of dollars under the table, and every twisted note she took, every diagnosis she invented, was building toward something. A psychological evaluation that would paint me as unstable, narcissistic, dangerous. The kind of evaluation that could be used in court. The kind that could take a child away from her mother. I went to those sessions thinking I was getting help, thinking I was being a good mom by working on myself. I had no idea I was handing them the ammunition they needed to destroy me. And by the time I figured it out, well, by then it was almost too late. The night everything changed started with something so small, I almost didn't notice it. Brad had this big dinner with his company's investors. The kind of thing where spouses were expected to show up looking perfect and saying all the right things. I'd spent all day getting ready, making sure Mia was set up with the babysitter, picking out the right dress. But when I went to grab my car keys from the bowl by the door, they were gone. I searched everywhere. The kitchen counter, my purse, the coat pockets, nothing. "Brad, have you seen my keys?" He was in the living room, barely looking up from his phone. "Nope, you probably misplaced them again." Again, like I made a habit of it. I felt this little spike of frustration but pushed it down. I'd just take his car. Except when I went to grab his keys, he suddenly needed his car for something. "Just call an Uber, Amanda, Jesus, it's not that complicated." So I did. But my credit card got declined. Then my debit card. I called the bank right there, hands shaking, and they told me the cards had been reported lost and canceled. By the account holder. By Brad. I made it to that dinner an hour late, flustered and embarrassed, my hair a mess from the stress sweat. Brad's boss took one look at me, and I could see the judgment in his eyes. Brad played it off beautifully, apologizing for my situation, explaining how I'd been having a hard time lately. He was so smooth, so concerned husband, that everyone just nodded sympathetically. But I knew, standing there in that restaurant with everyone looking at me like I was fragile, I knew he'd done it on purpose. The keys, the cards, the timing, all of it. When we got home that night, I confronted him. I wasn't yelling at first. I was just asking for the truth. "Did you hide my keys? Did you cancel my cards?" He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Why would I do that? Amanda, you're being paranoid." And that's when I snapped. 8 months of therapy sessions that made me feel crazy. 8 months of little comments and missing things and his voice always so calm while mine got higher and higher. It all came pouring out. I screamed at him. I actually screamed. Something I'd never done in our entire marriage. And that's when I saw it. The little red light on his phone, propped up on the bookshelf across the room. He was recording me. The whole fight, completely out of context. Just me yelling like a maniac while he stood there looking concerned and afraid. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Brad, what are you doing?" He picked up the phone, and I'll never forget the look in his eyes. Cold, calculated. "I'm documenting concerning behavior for Mia's safety." He sent that video to Veronica that same night. By morning, she'd issued an emergency psychological evaluation, recommending my immediate removal from the home. The report said I was displaying signs of acute psychotic break and posed an imminent danger to the minor child. 24 hours later, 2 police officers showed up at my door with a court order. I had 10 minutes to pack a bag. Mia was at school. I didn't even get to say goodbye. And as I watched Brad standing in the doorway of our house, my house, with that same cold expression, I realized something that made my stomach turn. This wasn't a breakdown in our marriage. This was a plan, and I'd walked right into it. The supervised visitation center smelled like disinfectant and sadness. That's where I was allowed to see my daughter now, twice a week, 1 hour each time, with some tired social worker sitting in the corner taking notes on everything I said. Mia would come in looking smaller somehow, quieter, and we'd sit at this little table with donated toys that were missing pieces. I'd ask her about school, about her friends, trying to sound normal when everything inside me was screaming. She'd answer in these short little sentences, glancing at the social worker like she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Daddy's good. Tia Veronica is staying with us now. Tia, Aunt. My 8-year-old daughter was calling my husband's mistress, because that's what she was, Aunt Veronica. And there was nothing I could do about it. The social worker would write something down every time Mia hesitated or I asked a question. Every hug goodbye felt like it might be the last one. What I didn't know was what was happening at home, my home, where I wasn't allowed to be. Mia told me later, after everything, what those weeks were like. Brad and Veronica thought she was just a kid, easy to ignore, easy to fool. They'd wait until her bedtime, tuck her in, close the door, and then they'd go downstairs and have their real conversations. The business conversations, the planning conversations. But Mia wasn't sleeping. She'd learned pretty quick that the adults in her life were lying about everything, so she started paying attention in ways they never expected. I'd taught her how to use her iPad for school stuff, educational videos, virtual field trips, that kind of thing. She knew how to record videos for her book reports. Smart kid. My smart, brave kid. So when she heard voices downstairs, angry Brad voice and laughing Veronica voice, she'd crack her door open, prop her iPad up, and just let it record, night after night. They never noticed the little red light from her room. Why would they? She was just a child. She told me she started doing it because she missed me. She wanted proof that I wasn't the crazy one, that something was wrong. She didn't understand all the words they used. Offshore accounts, mental health clauses, inheritance claims. But she understood the tone. She understood that they were happy I was gone. And she understood, in that way kids sometimes do, that she needed evidence, that somebody needed to know the truth. What she recorded over those weeks. God, it was worse than I could have imagined. Plans to commit me long-term. Plans to send her away to boarding school once the inheritance money came through from my mother's estate. Plans to disappear with everything I'd ever worked for. But she held on to those recordings, every single one, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to actually listen. And when that final custody hearing got scheduled, when Brad told her she wouldn't be seeing Mommy anymore after that, that's when she knew. My little girl, 8 years old, made a decision that would save both our lives. She just had to be brave enough to walk through those courtroom doors when the moment came. The morning of the final custody hearing, I threw up twice before I even left my apartment. This wasn't one of those little check-in hearings. This was it. The judge was going to decide where Mia would live, who would make decisions about her life, whether I'd ever be more than a supervised visitor in my own daughter's world. My lawyer met me outside the courthouse, this exhausted-looking public defender named Marcus, who was juggling about 40 cases at once. He'd be honest with me the week before. Amanda, I'm gonna level with you. We don't have much. Her evaluation is official, documented, signed by a licensed psychologist. You have your word, and in family court, that's not usually enough. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He was just preparing me for what was about to happen. I walked into that courtroom feeling like I was walking toward my own execution. Brad's attorney was this sharp-dressed woman who probably cost more per hour than I used to make in a week. She had folders, exhibits, a whole presentation ready to go. And then Veronica took the stand. God, watching her up there was like watching a masterclass in destruction. She was calm, professional, spoke in this measured tone that made everything sound so reasonable. In my professional opinion, Ms. Morrison exhibits clear signs of narcissistic personality disorder with paranoid features. She's demonstrated emotional volatility, an inability to accept responsibility, and concerning behaviors around the minor child. My lawyer tried to cross-examine her, asked about her methodology, her credentials, but she had an answer for everything. She'd been doing this for years, not helping people, destroying them. The judge was taking notes, nodding along, and I could see it in his face. He believed her. Every word. Why wouldn't he? She had degrees on the wall, a license, an official-looking report with all the right terminology. I was just a hysterical ex-wife making accusations. When they finally let me speak, I tried to explain what had really happened. The keys, the canceled cards, the recording. But my voice kept cracking and I could hear how I sounded. Desperate. Unhinged. Exactly like someone with the disorder Veronica had diagnosed me with. Brad's attorney objected every 30 seconds, and the judge kept sustaining. Ms. Morrison, please stick to facts, not feelings. But how do you separate facts from feelings when someone systematically destroyed your life? When I finally sat back down, Marcus just squeezed my shoulder. He didn't have to say anything. We both knew. The judge was about to rule. I could see him organizing his papers, putting on his glasses. Veronica and Brad were sitting there looking so confident, so sure this was over. And maybe it was. Maybe I really was about to lose everything. The judge opened his mouth to speak, and that's when I heard the doors slam open behind me. Mia had been sitting in the waiting room with a social worker who was supposed to be watching her, but the woman was distracted, scrolling through her phone, barely paying attention. That's when Mia heard Brad's voice in the hallway. He was on his phone, talking to someone, and he sounded happy, excited. Yeah, it's done. Judge is about to rule any minute now. Amanda's finished. We'll have full custody and access to the estate by end of week. Veronica and I are celebrating tonight. Mia told me later that's when something just clicked inside her. All those recordings on her iPad, all those nights of listening to them plot and plan. It was now or never. She grabbed her tablet and ran. The bailiff tried to stop her as she burst through those courtroom doors, but she was small and fast and absolutely determined. I turned in my seat and saw her, my baby, sprinting down that aisle with her pink iPad case, her face set in this expression I'd never seen before. Pure determination. Brad went pale, shooting to his feet. Your Honor, this is completely inappropriate. Someone stop her. But Mia was already at the front, breathless, looking up at the judge with those huge eyes. Please, sir, you have to see this. They're lying about my mom. I have proof. Her voice was shaking, but she didn't back down. The judge looked completely thrown. Young lady, this is a court of law. You can't just... I know. Mia cut him off, which honestly I'd never heard her do to any adult before. But they think I'm just a kid. They think I don't understand things. But I do. I recorded them. At night, when they thought I was sleeping. She was already moving to the bailiff's desk, pulling out the HDMI cable with those little hands that were trembling but so determined. Brad was talking fast now, his lawyer standing up, everyone trying to shut this down. Your Honor, clearly the child has been coached. This is a manipulation tactic. Nobody coached me. Mia's voice cracked, and I saw tears in her eyes, but she got that cable connected. The screen behind the judge flickered on, and suddenly we were all staring at our living room, at Brad and Veronica on the couch, wine glasses in hand. Sitting so close together their shoulders were touching. The timestamp showed it was from 2 weeks ago, late at night. Brad's voice came through the speakers, clear as day. I'm telling you, that evaluation is perfect. We get Amanda committed under the mental health clause, and her mother's entire estate, $3 million, transfers to Mia's legal guardian, which is me. Veronica laughed, this low, intimate sound, running her fingers down his arm. And nobody questions a licensed psychologist's evaluation, especially when the judge is motivated to fast-track things. Brad clinked his glass against hers. $20,000 to his offshore account. Best investment I ever made. The courtroom erupted into chaos, but the video kept playing, and what came next made my blood run cold. Veronica leaned closer to Brad, her voice dropping. So, what do we do with the girl once this is settled? She's so quiet, so observant, makes me nervous. Brad shrugged. There's that boarding school in Switzerland, year-round program. We send her there, she's out of the way, and we have the house to ourselves. They were planning to get rid of both of us, their own daughter, my daughter, and they were laughing about it over wine. I've never seen a judge's face change like that. 1 second he was confused, trying to process what he was seeing on that screen. The next second, when Brad said $20,000 to his offshore account, he went absolutely rigid. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Because here's the thing nobody understood yet. The judge hadn't taken any bribe. Brad and Veronica had made it up, probably to make themselves feel better about the fraud they were committing. But now his name was attached to corruption he didn't commit, in a recording that was playing in a room full of lawyers, court staff, and witnesses. His reputation, his career, everything he'd built. It was all burning down because these two idiots had used him as a fake alibi for their scheme. When he grabbed that gavel, I actually flinched. The crack of wood against wood echoed like a gunshot. Bailiff. Lock every exit. Cut the security cameras. Nobody leaves this room until I get to the bottom of this. Brad tried to run. He actually tried to make a break for the side door, but 2 bailiffs grabbed him before he made it 3 steps. He was shouting something about the video being fake, about me coaching Mia, his voice getting higher and more desperate. Veronica took a different approach. She went cold and clinical, that same calm psychologist voice she'd used to destroy me. Your Honor, this is clearly a fabrication. The child has been manipulated by her mother to create false evidence. If you examine the metadata... Shut up. The judge's voice was so quiet it was almost worse than yelling. You're going to stand there and tell me about evidence integrity. You. He turned to the bailiff. Get her credentials up. Now. I want to see her license, her certifications, everything. The bailiff pulled out a laptop, fingers flying over the keys. The courtroom had gone dead silent except for Brad's heavy breathing and the click of the keyboard. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Then the bailiff's face changed. Your Honor, her license was revoked 5 years ago. Fraud and falsification of patient records in another custody case. The room exploded again. Veronica's face went from calm to panicked in an instant. That was a misunderstanding. The board. You've been practicing without a license for 5 years. The judge's voice could have cut glass. Every evaluation you've submitted in this court, every expert testimony, He stopped, rubbing his face. And I could see him calculating how many cases she'd touched, how many lives she'd destroyed with fake credentials. Then he looked at Brad, who'd stopped struggling and was just standing there between the bailiffs looking like he might pass out. And you. You paid an unlicensed fraud to create a fake psychological evaluation, falsely implicated a sitting judge in bribery, and conspired to commit your wife and steal her inheritance. The judge's hand was shaking as he pointed at them. You're both under arrest. Perjury, fraud, conspiracy, and about 15 other charges I'm going to enjoy watching the DA file. He turned to the bailiff. Call the police, real police, not courthouse security. I want them in handcuffs in the next 5 minutes. Brad made one last desperate attempt when the police arrived. He tried to twist free from the bailiffs, shouting about his rights, about how this was all a setup, how I'd orchestrated the whole thing. She's been planning this for months. She put Mia up to this. You can't just... One of the officers put a hand on his chest, stopping him cold. Sir, you need to calm down right now. But Brad wasn't calming down. He was unraveling. This man who'd been so smooth, so calculated, so sure of his plan, he was coming apart at the seams. Do you know who I am? I'm a senior executive at Morrison Pharma. I have lawyers, real lawyers, not like that joke she had. He jabbed a finger toward me, and I just stared at him. This was the man I'd married. The man I'd trusted with everything. The officer wasn't impressed. "Sir, put your hands behind your back." The click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Veronica tried a different approach. She turned on Brad instantly, like flipping a switch. "I want to cooperate fully, Your Honor." Mr. Morrison approached me with this scheme. He offered me money to falsify the evaluation. I was coerced. I was afraid. "You're lying." Brad's voice cracked. "It was your idea. You said you'd done it before, that it was easy money." And just like that, they were turning on each other. Two people who'd been drinking wine and planning my destruction 2 weeks ago, now throwing each other under the bus to save their own skins. The judge just watched with this disgusted expression. "Save it for your lawyers, both of you." He turned to the officers. "I want them in separate holding cells. No communication." Then he did something I wasn't expecting. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his face. Maybe guilt for almost getting it wrong. Maybe anger at being used. "Ms. Morrison, I owe you an apology. This court failed you spectacularly. I'm nullifying every previous ruling in this case effective immediately." The judge was shuffling through papers, signing things, his movements quick and decisive. Full custody is awarded to the mother, Amanda Morrison. All previous psychological evaluations are stricken from the record as fraudulent. Furthermore, he looked up at Brad, who'd gone completely gray. "I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all marital assets pending a full forensic audit. Every account, every investment, every property. If there's $3 million from an inheritance in there, Mr. Morrison, we're going to find it, and we're going to make sure it goes exactly where it was supposed to go." My lawyer, Marcus, the exhausted public defender who'd thought we had no chance, was just staring with his mouth open. The judge wasn't done. "I'm also recommending the DA investigate this for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. Mr. Morrison, you'll need to give a full statement, but I suspect Mr. Morrison and Dr. Chen," he said the title with pure venom, "are going to be guests of the state for quite some time." Brad was being led out in handcuffs, still trying to talk his way out of it, when he looked back at me one last time. And you know what I did? I smiled. Not a big smile, just a small one. The kind that said, "You should have remembered who you were dealing with." 6 months later, I'm standing in the doorway of my own clinic. Not a big fancy office, just a small space in a strip mall between a yoga studio and a coffee shop, but it's mine. The sign outside says, Morrison Family Health Services, and underneath, in smaller letters, sliding scale fees. No one turned away. After everything that happened, after the forensic accountants found every penny Brad had hidden, after the divorce was finalized and the dust settled, I realized I didn't want to go back to working at a hospital. I wanted to do something that mattered. Something that helped people who felt powerless, the way I'd felt sitting in that courtroom. So I used part of the settlement money to open this place. We do general nursing care, health education, advocacy for patients dealing with the medical system. And yeah, sometimes we help moms who are going through custody battles and need someone to actually listen to them. Someone who believes them. Mia's doing better than I ever could have hoped. She's back in her old school, back with her friends, back to being a kid instead of a spy in her own house. We don't talk much about those recordings anymore. Her therapist says we should let her bring it up when she's ready. But sometimes at night, when I'm tucking her in, she'll squeeze my hand extra tight and say, "I'm glad you're here, Mommy." And I'll say, I'm glad you're here too, baby. She knows what she did. She knows she saved us. But she also knows she shouldn't have had to. That's something we're both working through. The trust issues, the hypervigilance, the fear that adults aren't telling the truth. Her therapist is good though. Patient. Nothing like Veronica. We're getting there. Both of us. One day at a time. As for Brad and Veronica, well, let's just say karma has a beautiful sense of timing. Brad lost everything. His job, his reputation, his freedom. Turns out, when a pharmaceutical executive gets arrested for conspiracy and fraud, the company doesn't stand by you. He's serving 8 years. Veronica got 12 because of the multiple fraud cases they uncovered once they started digging. Apparently, I wasn't her first victim. There were 3 other women, 3 other custody cases where she'd fabricated evaluations for money. They all came forward once the news broke. Every single one of those cases got reopened. Those women got their kids back. And Veronica, she's in a women's correctional facility upstate, probably trying to psychoanalyze her cellmates. I don't think about them much anymore. I'm too busy living the life they tried to steal from me. But sometimes, when I'm closing up the clinic and I see a mom come in looking scared and desperate, I think about how close I came to losing everything. How one little girl with an iPad and more courage than most adults changed everything. And I make sure that Mom knows, I believe you, I see you, and you're not fighting alone anymore. They tried to use the system against me. They had the credentials, the money, the lawyers, the fake evidence. Everything lined up perfectly to destroy my life and steal my daughter. And they almost got away with it. Almost. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated an 8-year-old girl who loved her mother enough to be braver than any adult in that courtroom. Mia didn't have a law degree or a psychology license or powerful connections. She just had the truth, an iPad, and the courage to run through those doors when it mattered most. That's the thing about lies. They can be elaborate, documented, official-looking. But the truth has a funny way of showing up in the most unexpected places. Usually in the hands of someone nobody's paying attention to. I learned something through all of this. The system isn't perfect. Sometimes it protects the wrong people and punishes the innocent. But the truth is louder than any lie, even when it takes a child's voice to make people finally listen. If you're going through something like this, if someone's using their power or their money or their credentials to gasoline you, to make you question your own reality, don't give up. Document everything. Trust your gut, and find people who believe you, even when the whole world says you're crazy. Because you're not. And the truth will come out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will come out. My daughter saved me from a corrupt system and 2 people who saw us as nothing more than dollar signs. But the woman in the next story, she had to save herself from something even more cold-blooded. Imagine being at the hospital with your dying mother, the woman who raised you, who gave you everything, holding her hand as she takes her last breaths. Now imagine getting a text from your husband in that moment, not asking how you're doing, not offering support, demanding $20,000 for his brother's destination wedding. $20,000. While your mother is dying, what would you do? Would you give in? Would you explode? Or would you do what she did? Something so brilliant, so perfectly calculated, that his entire family turned against him and he ended up losing everything. Trust me, you need to see how this plays out.